I want to ask, so with your 20 some years around the GU men's and women's program, is there one player that stands out to you as far as epitomizing leadership, work ethic, just preparation?
Oh, wow. Besides Dan Dickow?
That's a long time ago. I think there's been some guys that have surpassed me.
Well, you really put me on the spot because, some of the women's basketball players come to mind, the men's basketball players. I haven't worked with other sports for a few years, but, some of these rowers, golfers, tennis, volleyball players, they're so inspiring. And I have this kind of a format of 3 levels of leadership. Level 1 is synergy. It's your ability to create relationships with others. And that's kind of the common thread here at Gonzaga, which I don't know if it's like that in other Division I universities, which would be is people know how to connect and they know how to build relationships, and it's not cutthroat. You can kind of know that your teammates have their back. And I think that's why we've seen success across most of the sports here at GU, is because we have a mix of level 1 leaders. And then level 2 is sweat, your ability to lead by example. And now we have less of those players, the players that are not just going to show up early to practice and win the conditioning and stay late. But to really be a level 2 leader, you need to go to bed early. You need to eat breakfast. You have to do your rehab work, which is really difficult to do. And if you do those 2 levels well, if you know how to build relationships, synergy with teammates, and you know how to lead by example through sweat, then you earn the right to be a level 3 leader, which is to serve. And there's probably only 1 or 2 of those every year that I see, because you see a lot of athletes that will come in, they work hard, they're going to lead by example, but they're also going to kind of stay in their own lane. They might see one of their teammates showing up late to practice or not getting their shots up, and they're like, well, I kind of lead by example. That's not my style to say anything. And I think, don't get me wrong, leading by example is really high level of leadership. But the highest level of leadership is to serve your teammate when you see them showing up late to practice, to have a conversation. Don't wait for the coach to bring it up. You bring it up. Hey, how's everything going? You okay? I noticed you show up late today. Need a ride? Need a reminder? And then if they don't, well, get your butt to practice on time. Like, this is important. And so those are the ones that are few and far between. And the best level 3 leader I've ever seen is John Stockton. And we've got to play hoops with him for the last 15 years on Sundays. And you see that 3 levels of leadership right in action. You see level 1 because he's the one that calls every one of us, texts us, making sure we know what time that the gym opens up. He unlocks the gym. He literally sweeps the floor for us. And so because of that, we have a lot of trust and we have a relationship with him. And then, from playing, this is not a normal pickup game where you could just kind of go half speed and get some threes on a fast breakup. I mean, every shot matters, and he's the hardest worker on the floor. And that's why he's earned the right to be a level 3 leader, which is, I don't know if you've been there on the times where maybe he's kicked the ball across the gym or a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
times. Yeah, he's
all
literally
have at some point.
he's literally turned the lights off. He's like, it's my gym. If you guys don't raise to my standards, you don't play hard enough, I'm going to turn the lights off and basketball's over. And the reason why that's a huge, big time leadership move is because he has the other 2 levels. He's built a relationship with us, and we know that he's walking the walk. He's leading by example. And so those things only happen maybe once a year, but when we're not raised to his standard, he cares enough to serve us. And so I think that leadership piece is crucial. And we have a few of those, maybe every year, every other year here at Gonzaga.
It's tremendous how you break down those leadership traits, as well as the ability to get to different levels of leadership. And I 100% agree with you with John and how he fits into that, and also the stories. And you beat me to it, because I was actually going to ask you about John, because it seems as if every guy that has come through Gonzaga's program has had I don't want to call it a aha moment, but it's like, that's John Stockton. And you meet him for the first time, and then over time you get to know him even more, and he fits that description that you shared so brilliantly. What was your first meeting with John?
I think it's probably the same as all of our meetings with John, which is, I was a walk-on redshirt freshman, so I was already nervous, but I showed up to the gym in the preseason, and I look across the gym, and it's John Stockton. And when you see a famous person in person live, they look a little different. And I'm like, I think this is John Stockton, And so, of course, I'm talking to some of the other guys. Is that John Stockton? And they're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, what's it like to play with him? And I said, oh, it's great, he'll pass you the ball, but if you miss your first shot, he'll never pass it to you again. And so now I'm like extra nervous, but I went over there and I introduced myself. I said, hey, I'm Mike Nilson. And he said, oh, nice to meet you. I'm John Stockton. And I'm thinking, of course I know you're John Stockton, but it's funny because I've talked about 10 or 20 different players and they all say the same thing. He's going to shake your hand. He's going to look you in the eye, introduce himself. And that's just, that's just epitomizes John. And then I didn't realize it, but at the time, that preseason, it kind of was set up to where, we had the 10 core guys that would kind of be on a team, they'd be one team, another team. And then we kind of had a team of overseas pros, walk-ons, John Stockton. And so that whole preseason, I was on his team. And I'll never forget that first game or two, I was just trying to get myself in a position where I could not miss a shot, like every time he'd drive to the hole, I would kind of maneuver. So I was always being guarded. But if you play with John, he's going to find a way to get you open. And so he was driving down in the middle of the key. I'm on the baseline. My guy comes to help and he dumps it out. And I'm like 15 feet away. So I'm wide open and there's no way I could do anything except for shoot. And I'm like, this is a tough shot. When you're on the baseline, 15 footer, it kind of seems like a gimme, but you have no depth perception. And so the whole time I'm not even thinking that I want to make it. I'm just like, please don't airball this. And my arms are a little tight. And thank goodness for muscle memory, because I went up and I, shot that shot just like you millions of times. Muscle memory took it in and I swished it. And that was my favorite preseason of my whole life, because from then on, I was on his team. And if you can make a layup and an open 15-footer, you're like Karl Malone. And so now the coaches are literally calling my parents, Mike is better than we even thought he was. He's incredible, because I'm playing on John's team. And I'm like one of the best players in the whole gym. And so I'm thinking, I think they're going to ask me not to redshirt. And I think I might start. And then John leaves to go to the NBA. And then the harsh reality of how good I really was hit me hard. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually suck if I'm not playing with John. I got to create my own shot. Like I'm taking contested 3-pointers now, get my shot blocked. But he's a special player, man. I mean, I've never played with anyone that can make you so open and make you think that you're so good.
That's a couple tremendous stories about John. And I'm 100% the exact same way that I met John for the first time. My redshirt year, I walk into the gym for open pickup runs, and I walk up to John and I introduce myself, stick my hand out, say I'm Dan Dickow, shake his hand. He exact same thing. He looked me in my eye, shook my hand, and say, I'm John Stockton. And I walked away thinking, you don't have to tell me who you are. You and Michael Jordan have been my two favorite players my whole youth growing up. But yes, many guys have the same first time meeting John stories.